Hello and welcome to our new weekly IG Live series because, seems like that's what all the cool kids are doing. Plus, it seems like a great way for you to get to know our members. We have so many members with expertise in different areas, and today we are going to be talking to one of them. Her name is Wenjen, and she is at Pragmatic Mom, but she is also the co-founder of Multicultural Children's Book Day, also soon to be known as Read Your World. And hello, we're going to be talking to her about Multicultural Children's Book Day and also getting some ideas for books to read today. So happy Martin Luther King Day, everyone here. So she says she has a pile of books to share with us today. Hello.
Happy MLK Junior Day.
Yes. Thanks. I hope everybody out there is having a good day with their families and out in their communities. And I'm excited to hear about the books you have to share. I don't know if you want to talk first about Multicultural Children's Book Day or if you want to share the kids' books first.
I can start with the books, I guess, right? Okay, so
Okay.
I did some research, and yesterday I walked to my public library, and, most of the MLK books were wiped out, which I think is a good sign, But anyway, I got a few, but I went to the Be a King, like Twitter, just to sort of, get some ideas. And one thing that they said was, let's give some credit to Coretta Scott King, because 4 days after her husband was murdered, she started the nonprofit on his behalf. And that is the only reason why we're celebrating this holiday today. And so there's this beautiful picture book that I found by Natsuke Shange and illustrated by Kadir Nelson. And it tells the love story of them, but also, more about her. And I didn't realize that they met when they were in Boston. So she was studying voice. So it's probably a conservatory. It could have been like New England Conservatory or Boston Conservatory. And then he was getting his master's in theology at Boston University. And it's just like a beautiful picture book. And it just kind of shows, like that whole adage about behind every great man, there's, like a strong, incredible woman. And she's absolutely that woman. So just to kind of follow up, because I didn't realize she had such a beautiful voice, but like a beautifully classically trained voice, and did concerts, to raise money. But then let's not forget another civil rights activist, Fannie Lou Hamer, who also used her incredible voice. And another civil rights activist who was inspired by Martin Luther King. So I thought I would add her. Another beautiful picture book. It doesn't have the sticker because I think I bought it before. But Caldecott Honor, Carol Boston Weatherford. Honestly, if you want to read Black history, just read every single one of her books. And Equa Holmes. This was her first picture book ever. And Equa Holmes was discovered because one of the editors at Kenilworth Press was kid played soccer and they stopped for ice cream in West Roxbury and she'd happened to have her artwork on the walls of the ice cream shop. So speaking of other people inspired by Martin Luther King or stood by him side by side, like Fannie Lou Hamer, John Lewis, who we lost recently, but an incredible 3-book graphic novel series. So just like in case people want other formats. And then Rosa Parks as well, another Caldecott Honor by Nikki Giovanni, illustrated by Brian Collier. Also it's just like a greatest hits of also authors and illustrators that cover. And I didn't realize that everything was happening in Birmingham, Alabama, that, that when Rosa, didn't get up for the bus, that prompted, it sort of brought, sort of like the perfect storm. Martin Luther King was there and he was on his pulpit. And, it was sort of like you had the right people at the right time. And it sort of all came together. In a sense of like how incredible everyone was there all at the same time. And, for history to unfold. So here's another one that I got in my library about Martin Luther King by his niece, my uncle Martin's Words for America. And so Angela Ferris Watkins, PhD, she is his niece, and Eric Velazquez, also incredible illustrator and author, wrote that. But then something that I read also, I looked up, and it basically said that, okay, of course, Martin Luther King was all about racism and fighting racism, but the whole idea of like woke, like, you know, this woke, and what was the genesis or what was the history of woke? And what I learned is it really came from Martin Luther King. And in his sermon, like a famous sermon, he like told his people or parishioners, you know, you need to be awake, like keep your eyes open, be awake, and be awake to racism, the structural racism. And it was all about like structural racism, why Black Americans were not getting the same economic opportunities as white Americans. And so it's that invisible racism that isn't, you know, isn't the ugliness of being called names, but it's actually more powerful. And so some examples were before civil rights movement, people of color, Black, Japanese Americans, they were not allowed to work in government positions. So you could not be a civil servant. You could be in the military, but then you were not getting the same opportunities. You were not, you know, you like a Black woman could not be a nurse. A Black man or woman could not learn how to fly a plane. And you know, and then there was other structural racism where it wasn't the law, but you know, there were very, very few Black police officers or firemen, for example. And so Carol Boston Weatherford wrote a book about the Tuskegee Airmen, and this was the first opportunity African Americans had to learn to fly planes through the military, and only as a result of, you know, like a shortage because of the war. And so like that's one example. And so like there's like an example of like the racism that maybe we're more familiar with, like Granddaddy's Turn, A Journey to the Ballot Box, about, you know, voter rights, and you know, and you know, we should know about it. And in fact, voter rights are threatened more than ever. But this whole thing about economic opportunity, what's so interesting is that it hasn't changed since 1968. So the stat I looked up was that African American, like if you look at any stats of, you know, how much are white families worth versus Latinos or Blacks or all others, it's still the lowest for Blacks. And then there was this headline that went around the Boston Globe that was shocking. And it said like the average white family in Boston's net worth was pretty close to $250,000. And then the average Black family was $8. And they were like, no, that's not a typo. It really is $8. And so, and part of the reason is, you know, the structural racism of laws, but also just like invisible, like they used, you know, they kind of used like behind the scenes. Like, so I'll give you a couple of examples. So where I live in Newton, we're like 7 to 9 miles west of Boston. And they put a new highway, I don't know, like 20, 30, 50, I'm not even sure, through, you know, it's called the Mass Pike. So it connects, you know, Boston through Newton and, you know, goes forever. And you know how highways, they have certain parts of the highway that have to be straight so they can use it for, you know, for like an emergency, like air, you know, for planes to land. And that has to be every certain segment. But then the rest of it, like the parts in between, the straight parts, can be curved. So I don't know who did it, whether it was Boston or Newton or like multiple, but they basically curved the Mass Pike to run through Newton to wipe out what was the middle class and upper middle class Black community. And it's the only place in all of Boston, if you were middle class, upper middle class, you know, not living in an impoverished area, that was safe for you to live. So these are the people who have their summer homes in, you know, like what still exists, you know, their summer homes in Martha's Vineyard, you know, that whole Black enclave. So they were all living in Newton, and they deliberately, you know what I mean, like, um,
Hmm.
you know, planned it so it wiped out like a good chunk of it. Like, you know, it was a very deliberate. And then you were like, oh my gosh, that's so surprising. But of course we know Boston's a very racist city. But then, like in Manhattan Beach, California, because I grew up in Southern California, and Manhattan Beach is part of the South Bay, so it's near Hermosa Beach and um, um, Redondo Beach. It's near Venice. It's like an affluent area. So there was beachfront property in Manhattan Beach. Like, Manhattan Beach is like one of the most expensive out of that whole very expensive area. And it was a black hotel owned by a black family, you know, back in the day. They owned it for hundreds of, you know, they owned it for at least 100 years. And um, some time ago, so they owned this hotel. It was like a thriving hotel before the community got built up. And then I don't know who, but it was like through Manhattan Beach, they used their eminent domain to seize the property of that black family for no reason other than to take it away from this black family. And so it sort of became like they tore down the hotel, and it was sort of like empty space. You know what I mean? And the only good news is that, you know, more recently in the last few years, because of George Floyd and the whole re-examining structural racism, that Manhattan Beach, as a government, as a governmental, you know, not the community, but as a government, reached out to the survivors of that family and paid reparations. And in terms of reparations, Evanston, Illinois, my daughter goes to Northwestern in Evanston. They're the first and only municipality or city to make reparations because, of course, you know, many people heard of redlining. And one of the reasons why African Americans don't have this multi-generational wealth that white families have is because they were denied mortgages. And it was because of like this like secret red line that people drew. And then if you lived in that area, you were denied mortgages. And so Evanston, which has, it's an affluent community, but it's like, it has a section that isn't, you know, so it has socioeconomic diversity, and the area that isn't, you know, where the homes are not worth like a crazy amount of money, that's where the African Americans live. And so it was like this, you know, red line example. And so they're paying reparations, and they're doing it in the form of very low interest loans to make up for the inability to buy homes. And I thought that was really that was a great way to address this. And I'm sure, like, I live in Newton, where, you know, like, we're considered you know, it's considered like an affluent community, but we're always like, oh, we don't have enough money for our public schools, or our roads are in terrible disrepair. And it's, you know, it's the same. I'm sure, like, Evanston probably feels the same way, and yet they still made this effort and made it happen. Like, it's actually happening. And so other examples of structural racism is this book, Tiny Stitches, The Life of Medical Pioneer Vivian Thomas, by Gwendolyn Hooks, and illustrated by Colin Bootman, and this is just one small example of, if you were Black and you did something. One, it was very hard for you even to get a job in the field if it wasn't like a low paying job. So in this case, he made a medical discovery, and it was like, it's considered lucky he was able to get the job, or he was allowed to work in the medical profession, and yet he was not allowed to take credit for it. The white surgeon that he worked for, I mean, I guess, had to take the credit, or but I mean, like, that the discovery was credited to his boss, who was white, and, you know, if there was any like financial benefit to it, it didn't go to him, and went to his white boss. And it's only like recently that, you know what I mean, like, there's even sort of a rumbling about, you know, this sort of, you know, great unfairness, you know what I mean? And also, this is a book that isn't probably widely known, so people probably don't still realize, you know, and it's one of many. So this is one
have to, I mean, it's an injustice for him. And then you have to think it's kind of an injustice for all of us. Because imagine if he had had the freedom to work as he should have been able to, what other inventions and discoveries he would have made that we all would have benefited from. Because it wasn't he a cardiac surgeon? Is that what it was? It was some kind of invention that they used, I think, in open heart surgeries or a way to do the surgeries. So imagine what other things he would have done that would have benefited all of us if he had been able to
That's
work
right.
as he
And I
was
think
supposed
open
to.
heart surgery is for babies. And also just as a
But that,
role model. You know what I mean? How many more generations of doctors who, you know, from, you know, African American doctors could he have inspired or mentored or, you know? Yeah, absolutely. So my very last book is Be a King, again by Carol Boston Weatherford. And I had more books, but this is the only book I could find. I think I donate a lot of my books, and I could, because I know I own Martin's Big Words, and I literally, I think I gave it away. But I wanted to end on this book because it's about Martin Luther King, but it's not, you know, his words in anything. It's really more like, okay, so we all, I mean, like, so one aside would be that Martin Luther King is revered now, but when he died, 75% of Americans disapproved of him, and 50% of Blacks disapproved of him. But now that, you know, we have our holiday, and we forgot about that part because, you know, the messages that he spread were very threatening. This book is more like, okay, now be a king. So take his words to heart, Martin Luther King. So on this day where we celebrate Martin Luther King Jr., let's remember what, you know, like what he stood for and what he advocated for and what he wanted us to do, and then let's go out there and practice it, you know. And so this is a really great book to say, like, okay, you know, how can I help carry the work forward? And you know, it's something that we can all do in everyday life, no matter what age. So anyway, that is my Martin Luther King Jr. Research that I did, and they actually unveiled a new sculpture in the Boston Public Garden that is also a tribute um, to his wife and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So I haven't seen it in person, but it looks pretty interesting.
well, thank you for those books. I mean, they're such beautiful books, and there are a lot more now that are coming out about either about directly about his life or, like you said, other heroes of the civil rights movement. And I love that you mentioned that we should be thinking about how we can carry on his legacy in our everyday lives. This is such a great, the holiday is a great time for us to step back and reflect on that. And just to segue into the next portion, I think the thing that we've been doing a lot is you know, and ties directly into the books you were sharing, is about educating the next generation and sharing these stories with kids and making sure, you know, that they know this history, and also that they're kind of inspired to get out and get involved in their communities as well as they, you know, as they get older, which is the whole point of Multicultural Children's Book Day, Read Your World. So could you tell us a little bit about that? It's coming up very soon, and I love that it comes so soon. You know, it's kind of right in between Martin Luther King Day, right before Black History Month. I mean, it's just a great time to
Right, and
be
also right
celebrating diverse
for Read
books.
Across America. Um, so
Right?
yeah, so thank you so much. That was such a nice, you teed it up so nicely for me. So this year we're celebrating
Right.
on Thursday, January 26th, and we're going to have this huge virtual party. Like in the past, we had a Twitter party, and this year it's a virtual party. So everyone, please sign up. We'll be discussing these kinds of questions about the state of children's book publishing, diverse books that we love, diverse books that we wish you know, we wish more could be made. But we're also giving away 14 book bundles, and so you can win books like these. And we're giving it away. I mean, like a book bundle, like every 5 minutes, based on who participates. And yeah, we're celebrating diverse books all year at Multicultural Children's Book Day. And while the sign up has been closed for people to get books for free, just keep us in mind next year. So next fall, you can sign up to review books and get free books. But in the meantime, you know, a lot of great opportunities to win these incredible packages. So
And if you if you follow the hashtag read your world, you're going to start seeing, I've already seen quite a few happening, and especially over the next week or so you're going to see more book reviews. People are going to be reviewing these really wonderful children's books, diverse children's books, and posting it on their social media or on their blog. So if you're looking for really great suggestions, just follow that hashtag. We're going to repost a lot of them. Well, I say we, I'm on the other channel on Read Your World MCBD. We're going to be reposting and sharing a lot of those reviews on there, so you can get a lot of really great ideas for books to read. We're also going to have on the Multicultural Children's Book Day website, it's this giant linky where people can link up all of their reviews. They could be ones that they've done for this year or ones they've done for the events in the past. So it's such a great resource. It's humongous. I can't remember how many, like more than 100, more than 200. I don't remember how many
yeah,
ones we usually get
yeah,
linked
no,
up in
we
the
get
linky, but they're just
hundreds.
hundreds of reviews. So if you're looking for really great books, that's a great resource you can watch out for. And like I said, if you follow the hashtag, you're going to start seeing those over the next week or so. And then the virtual party, it's happening Thursday, January 26th, 9 p.m. Eastern. It goes usually an hour, and so 9 to 10 Eastern or 6 to 10 p.m. if you're on the West Coast. And it's a great way to connect. There are a lot of authors that are on there, illustrators, teachers, parents, families. You know, there are a lot of people who are really interested in diverse books or who help create diverse books. So it's a neat way to connect with other people. And like Mia said,
So
tons of prizes,
you'll need
really
to
great
sign up to
prizes.
get the link. So be sure it's like on my
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, like you can get the link off my like in the bio, but make sure you sign up so you get the link. It's a Zoom party, and all are welcome. You know, and we really want authors, illustrators, book publishers to come, because when people ask like, hey, you know, what's a book about this and that, I mean, be sure and chime in, and you know, shameless self-promotion is encouraged, you know.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really fun party, and like Mia said, there's a lot of discussion about what we like that's happening in children's books, what we want to see, how we use it to help our kids, whether it's you're in the classroom or at your homes. It's a really great way to connect with other people. So again, you can find all that information on her Instagram. That's Pragmatic Mom. You can also go to Read Your World MCBD or the Multicultural Children's Book Day website and get all that information. And we'll be sharing it on Multicultural Kid Blogs as well, since we're a co-host. So if you're when in doubt, you can find all
So I
of
mean,
that at our bio as well.
speaking of
So
structural racism, Multicultural Children's Book Day, we have a book, you know, a classroom kit on structural racism, and that came out of the discussion because one of our questions is, what should we do for our next classroom kit? So this year we did one on mental health during stressful times, which was also a result of people saying, you know, that would be a good idea. So you can help suggest what we should do for this upcoming year. You know, because that's, you know, we'll have 6 questions. That's like one of the questions.
yeah, and we really pay attention to what people say in the comments because we want your feedback for what kind of resources would be useful for you. So be sure to chime in. And like she said, you have to sign up to go to it because it's a Zoom party, so you have to get the link in order to do that. But it's really easy to do. It's very simple.
Great. Well, I hope you guys all come. It's just,
Well,
it's coming up so quickly. And we're also doing a series of giveaways. Like every Monday we have like a book list. And many of those book lists also have giveaways. So that is our hashtag Read Your World Book Jam 2023 book series, in conjunction with the Children's Book Council. So that's also part of our Multicultural Children's Book Day celebration. That is like, you know, it's a month-long intensive, but then we do celebrate all year.
yes, including IG lives, lots of book lists. We did a lot for Autism Awareness Month last year. And, you know, so we always try and make sure that you have the resources available all year long that you are looking for. But Mia, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're really busy getting ready for the big day. Again, that's January 26th. The Zoom party is 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern on the 26th. So thank you for taking the time to talk with us and
Thank you
sharing
so
all
much
those
for
wonderful
having me.
books. All right. Bye, everybody.